Hello and welcome to Unwatchables, the podcast for films that may be hazardous to your viewing health. I am Marc Dottavio.
I'm Seth Troyer.
And today we are joined by writer and essayist Sami Gold to explore the world of conservative media with one quote-unquote documentary and one quote-unquote comedy that challenge both the title of this podcast and our supply of quotes. We are taking on two notorious films produced by conservative media outlet The Daily Wire, co-founded by Ben Shapiro. First up is 2022's What is a Woman? A piece of transphobic propaganda hosted by conservative personality Matt Walsh.
Personalities being very, very kind.
In the most technical sense of the word.
Yes.
And then we will move on to the anti-PC sports comedy 2023's quote-unquote satire, Lady Ballers. Fellas, I am all out of quotes, but we are happy to welcome Sami Gold, who is coming to us from former Yugoslavia, you said?
Yes, I am currently in the city of Split in Croatia. I've been doing a trip in the former Yugoslavia. So, here in the East, they know what a woman is. I'm going to make sure to ask them.
Yes, as they pass by, just ask them. Yeah, we
exactly.
We just picture us all, listener, in a hostel together.
Yeah, we're all in a hostel. It's
we're
hot.
Trying to get to the bottom of this whole gender.
Just like the film, we are trotting the globe to get answers to our questions. And again, Sami, our guest today, his writing can be found at liberalcurrents.com, on his personal Substack, or on his Twitter page. And my first question for you, Sami, who proposed the topic of today's episode, was what made you become what I assume is some kind of an expert in conservative media? Because these are not easy films to watch, and I assume that you've seen a lot more of them than we have. So is it a morbid fascination? Is it, is it a educational kind of thing for you? Where do you come from as far as an expert for these movies?
Well, I say, as they say, curiosity killed the cat, but sometimes the cat likes to be killed. The thing about me when it comes to, I guess, conservative media is it's a completely different world than either the world that I grew up in, and I'm assuming the worlds that you grew up in, and just Hollywood in general. Like, it's not necessarily sort of like an Ed Wood thing where you feel like you're at the dregs or the edges of Hollywood. It instead feels like it's a sort of bizarro world version of it, where they have their stars, Kevin Sorbo, James Woods, but almost at a bizarro sort of completely different ideas of what makes a good movie, what makes good art, what makes a good documentary, what makes a perspective point. And that's kind of fascinating. I mean, sometimes you have the more typical, I guess, sort of mainstream film sort of versions of that, which is Reagan from last year, or Sound of Freedom from 2 years ago. But then you get movies like this, which is from a completely insulated ecosystem, which, almost in like an anthropological sense, it's like a fascinating idea. Or just not even a fascinating idea, more like a fascinating sort of thing to think about. So it's not a very enjoyable world to be in, but it is different, and that makes all the difference.
That is like the aspect that I noticed the most going through this, because I was just like slapping my head when I heard we were going to do this. It also wound up accidentally, we didn't even think of it, is going to come out in Pride Month.
Yes.
So
Happy Pride, everyone.
We are exploding anti-gay, anti-transgender from the inside out, I guess.
Yeah,
here.
We are destroying these agendas from the inside.
But that was like the major thing. I was like, this is going to be like a hate watch. I'm just going to like barely get through this. But part of it was, and I'm amazed that it still is so bizarro. Like the word that I use is also like feeling like it's bizarro. Like what is this fringe like world that I'm in while like I'm watching these? It does feel like they're from another world, but it's like what the whole thing with leftists has been gradually realizing this, like, this is not from Bizarro World. This is actually from the majority, like, scary
Yes.
part of America. Like, this is everywhere. It is, and it's still shocking, like, into Trump's second presidency for me. So it's just wild. That I'm still like catching up with how we do live on different planets almost.
Yeah, and
The
it does
sound of-
feel like these are like there are examples that are more mainstream. Like, you know, something we did consider talking about some Pure Flix movies, which is kind of like a production studio that's Christian centered, and they do the God is Dead or God is Not Dead series. And even somebody like me who is kind of relatively informed about like most new releases that are coming out, sometimes I will check the movie show times for something and see one or two movies on there that I've just never heard of. And sometimes they're number 3 at the box office. And they usually are about a child who goes into a coma and has a dream about heaven. And so his parent wrote a book
Heaven
about
is
it,
for
and they
real.
turned it
Heaven
into
is
a
for
movie.
real, starring Greg Kinnear.
Yeah, exactly. And legitimate actors like Greg Kinnear will be in them. And on the other end, you have like the Dinesh D'Souza films, which I'm glad we didn't dive into, but we could have like 2016
Those are better.
Obama's America.
Those are
Mhm.
frankly
they
better
really?
films than this. Yes, because at least with Dinesh
Interesting.
D'Souza, like he has a point he's trying to make. I mean, I guess so does Walsh. But the thing about Walsh is that there's this sort of just asking questions nature to it that is so almost particularly bugging to me that with D'Souza, he knows you agree with him and he's not trying to convince you. And he's not even trying to preach to the choir more so than it's just a rant from his subconscious. So 2000
Right.
Mules is extremely
Personalized,
boring.
yeah.
I'll definitely take your word for it. And it sounds like these are maybe inhabit kind of a middle ground where we're not fully mainstream here. These are definitely intended for their own
it's true.
personal audience, but they also are taking the form of something familiar, like a Michael Moore documentary or a mainstream crass, lowball comedy. That's it's funny to see them kind of work in those modes while at the same time coming from a completely different place. And like Seth was saying, we did want to make sure we had a good reason for doing this episode because these are movies that thrive on negative attention as much as any other kind.
Yes.
And so we were hesitant to feed them what they live on, but also like Seth was saying, I do think there's something valuable in figuring out like what the appeal is to impressionable people who watch these, who maybe are fooled by what they are pretending to be. And like you said, Sammy, to actually explore like this alternate reality that we actually are living in alongside these people and just don't realize it. So that's where we're coming from here. But we are definitely going to be critical and analytical about these movies as opposed to just making fun of them.
I mean, and then I think the other thing I would add about the Daily Wire in particular is that the Daily Wire is this interesting intersection of all of these, because a lot of the people in the Daily Wire, whether they be Jeremy Boring, the star of Lady Ballers, and sort of the guru behind the whole project, are obviously Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, etc. So all these people are people who failed in Hollywood. And a lot of their anger at liberal America kind of comes from that. Or they grew up in New York City or outside Los Angeles. And, so the thing with the Daily Wire is that it's an interesting intersection between, sort of reactionary id stuff such as, I don't know if you know them, but the movies that Ron Ormond made with Reverend Estes Perkle in the 70s, which are just fire and brimstone.
On the podcast.
Yes, so just fire and brimstone rages against communism, and just the hippie movement in general, or Dinesh D'Souza comes to mind, or things in those vein. Those that's the id. That's they are preaching to the choir per se, but it's less that more so than it is a primal scream. While with the Daily Wire, they're trying to find like a fine line between that primal scream and sort of lower tier Hollywood that they all dreamed of going into. So there's almost a sense here of sort of like a pickup game of basketball between a bunch of has-beens.
Very
Which I don't know.
appropriate.
I think, yeah, exactly, yeah, and that is the plot of one of the movies. So that
Yeah, they
kind of
definitely feel
almost.
like. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that, like that sort of not even let's put on a show kind of quality, but that sense of, we're, like we'll I guess we'll do what we always wanted to do in this vein. It adds a sort of interesting angle that you don't get in a lot of conservative media, which is sort of the failure of aspiration.
Yeah, it feels like they have an axe to grind, and they take it out
Yes.
very explicitly on certain people, such as journalists, which they always use with scare
Journalist.
quotes. And there's no lower being out there than, especially particularly female journalists. But that's more in the lady
Yes.
ballers territory. I do want to give a little bit of background on the Daily Wire for anyone listening to this who is like, what exactly is this thing that I've heard of? And I sometimes see a clip of Ben Shapiro being an asshole, but I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. That's where I was coming from with this. It's I've never actually like visited their website or anything, but I definitely see their articles pop up all the time, specifically on Facebook. The popularity there, I believe, is still more than any other news publisher. So if you ever wonder why, a big factor as to why Facebook is such a swamp of just misinformation and echo chambers and false, um, or let's say distorted, news stories. A lot of that are directly from articles that people
The
are sharing from the
journalists.
Daily Wire. And they now have a publishing imprint of studio for film and TV, which is where you can now find people like Rob Schneider or Adam Carolla getting things released. They are out there, and these are
Jordan
two good
Peterson.
examples. Jordan Peterson, yeah, and it is funny in their own little insular world. They have like their cast of celebrities that make cameos in all these movies, like Jordan Peterson, Candace Owens, or Gina Carano post cancellation. Anyone who's kind of been
Yes.
canceled out in the larger world can find a home here.
And the other big thing about the. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, the other thing about the Daily Wire, I think that's probably important to know, is like their particular niche in the conservative world is that in the beginning, they were kind of seen as the online kind of mainstream conservatism. They were, because obviously conservatives have the sort of affect, especially like in the 2010s, of being old farts or of being people, or like, you millennials, whatever. And the thing about the Daily Wire that was unique was that they were doing mainstream conservative talking points, defending Trump or social conservatism, etc. But they did it through memes, or they did it through internet culture, or they did it through Twitter engagement. So that was sort of, a lot of people found that very appealing, especially young men, and that is sort of the niche that they're coming through, which I think is an important thing to mention as compared to other kind of mainstays of conservative media, such as Fox News or PureFlix.
I think they're shooting for like a wider swath of an audience too, because what struck me about these, like I'm so used to like PureFlix or something as being the examples of this, like where religion is very much at the forefront and like a sort of puritanical morality or something, where it seems like Matt Walsh, a lot of these guys, they are sort of like, I don't know exactly about their spiritual leanings one way or another. You don't really get that through either of these movies. They are sort of like, I'm just a regular guy, and I'll say damn and fuck, and I might have a little sex on the side or whatever it is. I'm a little raunchy. So it's almost like I can imagine that is like one of the things that does ensnare folks from the outside, right? There's just like,
And they're smug, That's their big thing. They are smug.
Mhm.
They love sort of being like, like, silly liberals.
I'm just trying to be impartial here. I don't know. I'm just trying to get an answer. That's like the
I
whole
mean, Ben
mantra.
Shapiro's catchphrase is "Facts don't care about your feelings." That's their whole spiel.
Which, what a hook.
Exactly. And that's especially important to understand with What is a Woman, because not only did this remind me of a Michael Moore documentary, that it's focused around a main personality, which in this case is Matt Walsh. It
was just
also
a
made
guy
me
who's
think,
like, I'm just a regular guy. I just can't figure this out. Just like you,
exactly.
Yeah,
And
I have
Bill
no
Maher does
opinions
the
on
same.
this whatsoever.
Nope, nothing. I don't vote, nothing.
And Bill Maher did this same thing in Religulous, and we've seen kind of the person that he's become since then, which I think is telling. But like you guys were saying, all of these people have this faux innocuousness, which is just horribly condescending. And I think what is so insufferable about Matt Walsh and about What is a Woman in particular is that it has this veneer of objectivity and intellectual curiosity. When really, I think it's transparently every bit as much about just owning the libs as Lady Ballers is. And that's at least until, like, I think the last 20 minutes of this movie, he shows his hand where it just becomes shameless self-promotion, which we can get to later. But what it comes down to is
triggered.
Yes.
By the end.
And what it comes down to is he definitely does not want an answer to the question that is the title of this movie. He doesn't want to understand or learn anything. He wants to be argued with, but there's only one agenda here, and that's to play to his audience and promote himself. And that becomes obvious, I think, right away, and is what makes this so uniquely insufferable for anyone who is like remotely attuned to that.
Yeah.
Right from that like mystical slow motion montage where he's fishing. He's like fishing and just like, I'm just wondering, what is a woman? You know, just hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a piece of Michael Moore's exploitation, I would say. I mean, like, it has the entire affect of a Bowling for Columbine and a Fahrenheit 9/11. And as a teenager, I was in love with Michael Moore. So watching this movie, just kind of one side effect it had on me was just making me go, like, what about Michael Moore did I find appealing? Because this is all just the worst parts of Moore, like, cranked up to 11. I mean, it's so condescending. And the interview, they aren't even interviews. They're just they're just excuses for clips you can post online. Like, it's
you can.
It's astonishing, especially the one with the academic. Especially the one with the academic. That was incredible.
Well, he actually
tries giving a. Oh, go ahead.
He essentially gets the answer to his question in that clip, and so of course he has to edit that to make it sound like he's getting a bunch of, like, you know, academia speak vomited at him while he dozes off. But that unedited clip would answer the question, and the movie would be much shorter.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe I do want to start by entertaining his question, just for anyone maybe who is listening and is like, all right, what is the point behind this question? What is he trying to get at? Like, what is his catch here? Why is the movie focused around this? Because like you said, he doesn't allow anybody to answer that question unless they are tripping over themselves trying to articulate it. And then he's more than happy to try and make them seem like they're hapless. But it's a gotcha question. It's something that he thinks is so indisputable that anyone who can't give you an immediate clear answer must just be waffling on the question, which is, what is a woman? And clearly this is a memo that has gone around as a talking point for a bunch of people. There's a thing over the end credits here where somebody is being questioned, I think by the Senate for some kind of government position, is being asked the same question. And so clearly the email has gone out to everyone that this is something you can ask, that we can make people look like idiots if they can't give you an immediate, simple answer. And I mean, my response to that is, you know, there's like a rhetorical exercise out there that people use where you try to define any word without using the actual word itself in the definition, such as describing a chair without using the word chair in the definition. And you can do this exercise kind of going through the different checklists of finding that one immutable quality that must be there in the definition, or else it's not a chair. And you find it actually ends up being pretty difficult because it's like, well, okay, it's something I sit on, but there's things that I sit on that aren't chairs. Okay, well, maybe something's meant to be.
And a teenage stoner is gonna like poke and prod you, like, oh, see, you know, which is totally how he feels in this.
And you know, basically the only answer
bro.
that you can.
Yeah. What is a chair? Oh, but what is a chair?
Well, I'm saying it actually is. I think, you know, the way that this applies to gender, that is a relevant way to look at it. That there's not one immutable quality that must be there to say what is a woman or a man, as opposed to a wide constellation of factors that, some are societal, some are subjective, some are cultural, some are practical, but there's really not one thing. Obviously, he just wants to hear vagina and not get into all the exceptions that could come into that as well. But good luck trying to explain anything on that level to a willfully dense and host with an agenda who is just there in bad faith trying to make anyone look like an idiot who is trying to give a thoughtful answer to the question.
Yeah, I mean,
So
the thing that was
yeah.
no, go on.
Yeah. No, you go.
No, the thing that was the most shocking to me with this movie is that there's like no sense of ontology when it comes to the whole entire question. I mean, when it comes to the whole entire premise of the film. I mean, what is a woman? It's a genuinely interesting, provocative question. What is a woman? What makes a woman different from a man? What makes someone specifically a woman and not, let's say, a female or a person with female reproductive organs? It's a genuinely provocative. Like, what are the social aspects of being a woman? But like, think about Walsh is that he seems to have not even interest, but it's not even conscious about the fact that these things are interchangeable or are transitory. It's he only can think of a definition, like a woman, as a sort of Oxford English Dictionary definition that is not only impenetrable and unchanging, but that has nothing to analyze about it. He thinks that analysis is uninteresting, which is fascinating for someone who's a political analyst as their career. It's a philosophically perplexing sort of anti-intellectualism.
And
posing as the
question
exact
is not
opposite
new.
of that.
None of this is like, we've been studying this forever, and it's arrived at this new thing to conservative talking points right now. And it also is not, as much as it is sprawling and inspires so much needed study, what conservatives freak out about as being this so complicated, endless rhetorical exercise that leftists or allies are talking about, or trans people are talking about, is literally just the idea that he can't separate, which is that there is sex and there is gender, and there's a separation. There's a separation between the two that you can make, that there is a physical, and then there is something else that we have created as a society that you are obviously can manipulate and create for your own. The two are it's two separate things, and he cannot handle that. He just refuses to get away from the whole vagina or penis equals this word attached
and
to it.
What's fascinating to me is if you're an attentive viewer to this movie, it does stumble upon these answers constantly, inadvertently.
Yes.
So if I use
very
just one
early
example,
on in the movie,
with the academic, when they just answers it straight up, or with the surgeon.
But also, I think he's presenting certain arguments that are saying the opposite of what he means them to. And one of my biggest examples here is this horribly patronizing trip to Africa that he takes, right?
Oh my God.
He goes and is talking to this tribe in Africa, which in this movie is a stand-in for every non-Western civilization. They're the only ones that we hear from. And he one of his very first questions to them is, so what is a man? And their answer never goes near penis or genitalia. Their first answer is, a man. You cannot be a man if you don't feed your family and your children.
If you're not a provider.
Right.
Which is also made by their social structure, not biology.
Exactly. And that just sails over his head, or maybe he trusts the audience to be incurious enough to press on that issue, because like you said, it's right there, the answer. And besides the fact that, there's so many indigenous cultures that do have a much more fluid idea of gender that, of course, we're not going to hear about in this movie. But if you're
No,
not
you can
somebody who
tell
knows
that
that already,
oh,
there
there's
are still
something
clues
so, like,
here that
awful
he
and
is being
backhanded
disingenuous
going
and
on,
manipulative.
like, is it
And kind of the
besides the
whole
point to
thing
even
strikes
say
me
that there's,
that
like,
way
a
as,
weird
if not
undercurrent of
disingenuous,
bigotry of just, like,
opportunistic
gonna own the
in a
libs,
way.
like, by going to, talk to African people, like
Yes.
they would
And the music
would
too. It's like,
oh,
Hey, so I'm
and
just
like
saying to
like
pause
the
here. I just
slow
lost you guys,
like
and then
footage,
everybody
like
came
slow
back.
mo footage of like traditional Africans playing games or shooting arrows, etc. It's extremely condescending. But the thing about the movie, which is like, and this goes on to that, is that Walsh he doesn't even seem. I mean, if you just watch it from the movie alone, his issue doesn't even really seem to be with the fluidity of gender or of quote unquote transgenderism. His issue seems to be more just postmodernism, like the idea of breaking down established truths and questioning their very bases. That seems to be his bugaboo. And like the whole purpose of the trip to Africa is like these people. I hate saying that, it's also condescending, but like these groups of people, they have defined parts of nature that are unchanging, unmoving, and they're not gonna twist their minds to try to question that because it's obvious that's what God made us, or God made. It's not even really. I mean, obviously there's the whole transphobia of it all, but he doesn't necessarily ask them things like, like what is the specific and unchangeable characteristics of a man versus a woman, or like what are gender roles, etc. Like there's no real investigation into that, and instead it's just him being like, these people think that you can change something that's existed for thousands of years. Like that's his issue. It's a bizarre, he at the end of the movie, he mentions like the two apparently biggest criminals of the 20th century, which are Alfred Kinsey and John Money. But his main his main enemies seem to be Judith Butler and Michel Foucault, and there's no mention of them whatsoever.
I guess before we go any further, are we good with the
fascinating, like, does he
connection? Because
know
I
who they
lost you
are,
all
actually? Like,
while I was talking, and then I came back and somebody else was in the middle of talking. Are
Like,
Well,
we?
yeah, he has this more so than
Can
Ben
you guys hear me?
Shapiro or Jeremy Boring, who was the executive producer on this film and wrote and directed Lady Ballers. But those two really
and starred.
and starred, of course. Those two really do. I mean, I think see themselves as analysts, and they want to be taken seriously as analysts. And I think Matt Walsh is really more of sort of an agitator and shit kicker, and wants to just get in front of these people and throw, oh, but what about reality? Oh, I'm talking about reality in their faces over and over, and where again, all these people are imitating the these Hollywood figures that they're secretly jealous of. And I think where this is distinct from like a Michael Moore approach, where even if you can you call what he's doing condescending or accuse him of these sort of gotcha interview moments, like he is more or less always punching up. And to see Matt Walsh sitting down with like a gender studies professor or flying to Africa to do his shtick is just like never. I mean, setting aside the fact that he's never going to actually take any engage with anyone in good faith when they answer him. It is the most like it's really just a way for him to just state his very plain ideology at you without having to just be the one in front of the camera himself doing it. And it's, I don't know, does it ever like, is it functionally just the same question over and over? I watched this like a couple weeks ago now, and I'm trying to remember if there's even anything that where he moves past that premise that Sammy's talking about. But
Like, yeah,
like he
this
does
was-
acknowledge at one point. I think there is a point where he almost as a way to dismiss it and move past it, he does say, okay, sure. There's there's sex and there's gender and they're different, and then he kind of doesn't take that premise any further for the rest of the movie. Oh, we might have lost
Yeah.
Mark for a second. Hold on one second.
Well, sure. Then he talks
There we go.
about the implications. I think that's when he gets into sports, right? Which he just fucking can't get over. Like,
I
oh
mean,
my
the
God.
craziest part is they obviously do not care about women's sports. Like, it's like, I mean, that's more apparent in Lady Ballers, but
Mhm.
That's
I
a
mean, the
joke
thing
in
that's
Lady Ballers.
it's, I mean, the whole point of the movie is how much they just don't care about women's sports. But yeah, like, the whole sort of fake concern about, women. And then there's the part, where like all of these quote unquote whistleblower athletes are like, oh, like I lost my ability to win a championship because of a trans person. Then immediately in the clip, it shows trans person getting in fourth place, like
Right.
behind three quote unquote biological women. Um, like it's I mean, considering how much they despise feminism, it's an interesting sort of debate tactic that they never actually try to investigate. Like, it would be interesting if they invited a TERF on, like an actual unironic TERF. Someone
Right.
like
That
Kathleen
is
Stock.
something about this. That it feels like they don't talk to hardly anyone other than like Jordan Peterson at one point. Like,
Yeah,
most of this is like to reinforce the fact that we are outnumbered out here, you and me, who are just trying to live on planet Earth and be a little conservative and just have a little perspective here. Like both Lady Ballers and this come out feeling so much like they it's like in this alternate world again. I keep on thinking of it in this. It feels like a sci-fi thing where these people really do believe that they are totally outnumbered and that there's no one else like them, and it's just like a totally diminishing thing. And of course, this comes out in like 2022, like God forbid, like Biden is president, and just like again, knowing where we are now just only reinforces the silliness of this.
He says that at the end of the his trip to Africa too, where he emphasizes that, oh, you guys don't think about this because in my country we hear about it every day, and
Every
it leads
day.
him to make this just sensationally hysterical statement that gender ideology is a uniquely Western phenomenon, which clearly this guy's never been to Thailand. Somebody get him a ladyboy like right now.
or other parts of Africa. I mean, like there's like I mean, I don't want to become like a like a white savior, not even like a white savior, but like a sort of disinterested academic here. But there, I mean, I can't name them exactly by heart or from my memory, but there's been dozens upon dozens of investigations into the sort of fluidity of gender in indigenous tribes in South America and especially Africa. Like there are tribes where there's not even a sense of gender. Like,
But they don't
it's-
use the word trans, and they don't have blue
Yeah.
hair. So that's
exactly,
like
yeah.
the thing.
And there's
for
no
him.
ladies with beards or whatever.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
think that is so
seems to be
funny
his
that
big bugaboo.
Yep.
Yeah, there's lots of things that aren't even really interviews, but like for no reason he includes this nudist who is out. I don't know what the guy is doing out in public, or somebody who identifies as a furry, and they're only there because he thinks that they look silly, and that they will automatically make the argument that the other side is making look frivolous or delusional, and he keeps throwing them in, whereas he has other guests like this Miriam Grossman, who I looked up afterwards because the movie presents
Terrible
her as
person,
this
awful human
exactly.
being.
She's presented as this medical expert in the film. When you just do a Google search for her, she's behind multiple organizations that don't campaign just against trans care, but abortion, marriage equality, sex ed in schools. She promotes gay conversion therapy.
Yeah, she's
none
one of
of
the
which
big
you would
promoters
know
of gay
from the
conversion
film.
therapy. Yeah.
Which
That's
isn't it
so
curious
wild,
how
'cause,
this
yeah, she
movie
totally
never
struck
brings
me
up
as,
gay
like,
people?
oh, she's
This
the
never
doctor
brings
down
up
the street.
homosexuality, which is a safe, like that's no longer the current punching bag. And you know that they would be making these same arguments against homosexuality if this had come out like 15 years earlier. But it's
Yes.
funny how that doesn't ever seem to exist or to come into the conversation of gender roles in this entire film. Nor will he bring religion into it, because it's almost like he doesn't want to alienate anyone who might accuse him of being an ideologue or a religious fanatic. He wants to keep everything intellectual.
That would divide his audience.
Yeah, which is also, and I mean, one thing's important to note is they like the Daily Wire's main audience is evangelical Christians, but many of the chiefs are the main two, Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, are Jewish, and in Ben Shapiro's case, Orthodox Jewish. So yeah, I mean, it's they like a lot, like in the conservative movement, there's this sort of mood or like movement for pluralism. This was really big in the 90s. You sort of like orthodoxy, a pluralism and orthodoxy across the main religions, less so with Islam. But yeah, like they're one of the last people trying to keep that game up. But Walsh has become more and more of an evangelical fanatic as of late, and they're kind of dropping. They're dropping that from their profile, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the other experts that we do hear from, I mean, there are a few people here, therapists, doctors, like who are pretty extraordinarily generous and patient with him, even though they're clearly heavily edited. And, obviously he'll use any moment he can to give a reaction shot, or if he ever manages to push them to get a little flustered or upset, that's suddenly when he'll stop cutting up what they're saying. Or if they, happen to bring up some sort of kind of silly sounding point where they're using Santa or something about chickens.
Which he often starts. He usually starts like the comparison point, and they're just playing into it. But the joke becomes, can you imagine they're even trying to play on his game or trying to play on his level?
And clearly they have been misrepresented. Or the whole nature of the project has been misrepresented to them when it was first brought to them, because a lot of these people clearly are discovering in real time that this guy is not here in good faith.
He's not just asking questions.
He is not just asking questions. And again, I think some of the strongest arguments against him come from the haplessness of his own arguments. Besides the Africa interlude, there's the famous story that's taught in most like sociology or psychology courses about the twins, where one basically had some kind of an accident during circumcision that altered his genitalia, and they decided to try raising as a woman. Obviously, it turns out to be this horrendous case where he ends up committing suicide, has all kinds of trouble throughout his life.
Yes.
Where I feel it proves his point that being raised as a gender you don't identify as is what can lead to deadly consequences.
Exactly.
And then the other
it
big
never
thing
occurs to him.
Yeah. And the other big thing to mention, obviously, is that like the person behind the social experiment, John Money, is one of the two like main sort of George Soros kind of figures that they view as like the founders of gender ideology or whatever. Even though John Money was a noted transphobe, which is very funny to have.
Yeah, and it's kind of, maybe it's too easy to start turning your ire towards this movie towards its intended audience, which may be why on Letterboxd you cannot see public reviews of this film. I guess it's turned into a moderation.
It's the only movie on
Letterboxd
that's like that. Yeah.
Yeah, where you have to be following somebody to see their review of it. Which, it is kind of tempting to get upset with the people this movie is aimed at as much as the movie. And maybe that's a mistake that we make. Because it's certainly the way that you can't publicly see reviews on Letterboxd does play into this victim complex, that all of these people have.
Yeah, I mean, usually when talking about these things, I find the best thing, because when you're like talking about, oh, this movie is so stupid, or it's so like, or especially when like, oh, it's so prejudiced, that's sort of playing on their turf. They want you to do that. I always find the best thing here is to sort of analyze them from an ideological perspective, or especially from a sociological perspective, which they quickly fall apart. Like this movie, first of all, this movie is filmed horrendously. Like the lighting is terrible. Like everything is so brightly
all over
lit.
the place.
Yeah, everything is so brightly lit. There's, Lady Ballers is a much better filmed film in that sort of department. But yeah, when it comes to what is a woman, I think the most kind of interesting specific part of it is just like, how much they don't care about the question, but also what they consider is the interesting questions. Like the interesting question to them is not what is a woman, but it is sort of, can you change truth? Which they think is impossible.
And
Right.
of course, their assertion of what the truth is highly questionable.
Yes.
Which is an endlessly spiraling, progressive versus conservative thing where it's just like constantly this idea, just like, well, we have advancements, we have changed certain things. It's like, well, yeah, but it just like goes round and round.
And I think one of the main reasons I would maybe question somebody who does like this movie would be in that last 20 minutes, where I think it should be obvious to anyone this just becomes the Matt Walsh show where he's promoting his children's book. We see this
Yes.
horrible, noxious appearance on Dr. Phil.
Where
that
Dr. Phil looks like very grounded and a very sort of,
Yes.
like, and a very solemn, good thing, like, well-thinking figure compared to fucking Matt Walsh.
The whole mask of objectivity goes away and he becomes this crusader, or he pulls even a Michael Moore style stunt where he's, I don't know what, claiming he claims that he's moved into somebody's basement in this town so that he can talk in their town hall meeting because he now identifies as somebody from this town, which to him is this brilliant commentary on society and is edited in a way to make it look like this stunt didn't just fall on deaf ears to everybody. And yeah, at that point, it seems so transparent that this is a guy who maybe isn't even at all genuine about any of this. That maybe if he's not being maybe if he's not being disingenuous, he's at least being so opportunistic that that's his number one concern here.
It becomes apparent
himself.
that he's been playing a character. Like, it's obviously like a Matt Walsh avatar or something that he's been playing the whole game of being just a regular Joe, but eventually, yeah, like even down to like masks, like you could point out like 5 or 6 different points where he's like freaks out about masks. It's just like, again, like a personal opinion of his own, which again like tips his hand that like, no, he's not just like some like guy just like you. He has like very staunch opinions about things. He's coming into this with them and he's not going to lose them.
Yeah. And I think a movie like this invites you to just kind of respond with a list of bullet points. Like we could talk forever about going through every scene and, okay, this is misinformation. This is misrepresenting who the person is who is speaking.
That's
there's
not
all
even
kinds
the
of
point,
examples
yeah.
of exactly. And there's probably if you're interested in that, I'm sure there's stuff out there that you can read or a whole other movie maybe that responds to this. Because this is constantly just vaguely alluding to things without explaining them. Like, the litter box in the classroom story, which has been thoroughly debunked.
Oh my
or
God.
the whole Loudoun County thing where someone was assaulted in a bathroom that he just vaguely alludes to so that he doesn't have to reveal it has nothing to do with an actual trans student. I encourage anyone who is interested in that to kind of just Google anything this movie brings up and the truth will pretty quickly come up, for you.
Yes.
But I think, I don't know, let's give our final thoughts here because this is definitely an unwatch for me. Actually, it's such an easy unwatch that, we keep like ranked lists of movies that we've covered on this show, which this plummets right to the bottom for me. This is like Birth of a Nation territory, except that there's no tension between the form and the content. There's really nothing even interesting to talk about.
Right, it's a bad documentary.
Yeah, on every level
On that
it's
level.
trying.
Yeah, and the other thing especially is Matt Walsh is such an obnoxious person to be with for 99 minutes. I mean, Michael Moore at least is somewhat funny and entertaining, or even some like Dinesh D'Souza. Like, he has like an interesting sort of patter to his voice, an interesting sort of way of going about things. Someone like Matt Walsh is just, everything about him makes me feel repulsed, from the stupid sort of hipster getup he always has, to his just asking questions, fake affability, to his just refusal to understand anything such as basic empathy. Like, it's just the thing that makes it most helpful, because like, there are bad documentaries that you can watch as sort of like an anthropological sort of POV, or you can watch them almost as like a hate watch. This, I couldn't even, do that. It was just living in a void for 90. It took me a day and a half to finish it because I just had to pause it because of how bad he made me feel just listening to him. Not even the content per se, but just the content's horrible. Don't get me wrong, but just the person spouting the bile was repulsive.
It's a genuinely depressing experience. And I mean, the final thing that I'll say about it is that, you know, in a way, there's no way for him to lose in this conversation because he's happy. I'm sure he'd be happy that we're unwatching it. He'd be happy that we wasted our time and hated it and disagree with him. One thing he might not be happy to realize is that he's the least funny person I've ever seen in a film. And he clearly is under the impression that he has a great deadpan comedic timing. So I'll just leave it with that. Matt, you are the least funny person that I've ever had to spend time with.
He's definitely listened to this point, I think.
But any other final thoughts before we move on to Lady Ballers?
I mean, I'm an unwatched too. I'm right there with you, down there with Battle Birth of a Nation and Space Jam 2, you know. But I mean, like, part of me is almost interested, like, if it's just amazing that this does work on people, and I need to stop being amazed by it. But like, part of me, it all ends with this horrible scene where he finally, after his long day of bothering people, goes home to his wife, and she's like, "I can't get the pickle jar open," and you know what? He picks it up and he gets it open, and then he's like, "What is a woman?" And she gives the definition that he's been asking for. Thank God. Which is basically just like, you know, boy have penis, girl have vagina, you know.
Well, ironically, her answer uses the term adult female in the definition, which he keeps yelling at people for doing. And her answer is an adult female who needs your help opening this jar.
God.
Adult formed by, you know, society and exterior forces that are not biological necessarily, you know. What does that mean in our society? It means a whole lot, you know, as opposed to, you know. But it just, yeah, like, it almost like amazes me, like, if I could just like recut this and put that at the beginning of the documentary, like, and then proceed to watch the rest, it just like boggles my mind that doesn't break down. Like, it's like 5 minutes later into talking to someone who's actually has a nuanced opinion about any of this. Just
well,
amazing.
I mean, to the extent that the movie can work on anybody, I mean, I don't think it's not trying to win this fight. It just wants to set up these gotcha interview moments for people who already like share the same like fucked up ideology. I agree with Marc's take that Matt Walsh is just an extremely depressing person to spend time with, to the point where I was so relieved when Jordan Peterson showed up for a brief moment near the end of this. Like it felt like
he's like an oasis in the desert.
Yes. It was like seeing like an old friend at that point. I never want to see another movie that makes me feel like relieved to see Jordan Peterson.
He also like at least sounds cogent. And he has like, you know, an interesting sort of pattern to his voice. You know, like unlike Matt Walsh, who's just the definition of repulsion.
Yeah, he's an entertaining guy at the very least.
And say what you will about Jordan Peterson, he has the courage of his fucking crazy, deluded opinions. I believe that guy believes every word that he says.
Of course.
Yeah, Matt Walsh does come off as like the most cynical member of this entire crew over
define to believe
his performance here.
It's not. I love the way he says not.
All right,
cultural Marxism, you know. I just love like how Canadian his accent is. Well, Carl Jung once said, you know,
he really leans into it.
Yeah. Well, I could have used even more of him in Lady Ballers as well, which he does do a last-minute silent cameo.
Yes, he has a Marvel post-credit scene.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nick Fury.
And Matt Walsh has a bigger kind of still small supporting role in this film. Again, they have this whole constellation of their own little stars doing cameos all throughout things. But Lady Ballers is definitely a different tact. And this, we should note, is directed by and starring Jeremy Boring, one of the
auteur Jeremy Boring.
Yes.
Yes.
A narrative film now.
And I will start us off on a counterintuitively positive note, just as a way to challenge myself, that I think I could see this guy carrying an actual movie, or at least being in an actual movie,
Yeah, he's
if he hadn't
charismatic.
devoted his life to this. I think
Mhm.
he's actually decent as an actor in this film.
Yeah, he's charismatic. He can deliver a joke. I don't laugh at the jokes, but he can deliver a joke pretty well.
Mhm.
I mean, the biggest star in the movie is who's not in conservative media is Lexi Contorsi of I think like a Desperate Housewives spinoff. I forget her exact thing, but yeah, no, Jeremy Boring is definitely the discovery, from a sort of acting perspective.
Yeah, and this movie is, I think, a lot easier to imagine in the alternate universe being like a normal movie,
It's
right?
just
Like this
Dodgeball.
this
It's just
resembles
even more
yeah.
hateful than
Mhm.
Dodgeball could ever be.
Yeah, it's just a 2000s direct-to-video comedy. That's kind of what they're planning to be. I mean, it's the most
Yeah, talk about
expensive
conservative.
ever. It's like it was made for like I want to say like $10 million.
Yeah, something that could have been released by Happy Madison Productions, not starring Adam Sandler, but maybe starring like Rob Schneider, David Spade. Exactly. Like I could even imagine like a heavily edited down version of this that would just come off like a lame, mostly inoffensive comedy. And a lot of
Right.
those early Adam Sandler comedies will have moments of gross transphobic jokes in them. I think
I mean, every comedy in the 1990s was like 80% gay panic.
for sure, and
Yeah,
I think the
white chicks,
difference
hot chick, all that stuff.
exactly
It's Pat.
the ending of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is like a pretty heinous, trans freak out.
It's the birth of a
That I
nation of
think
transphobia.
exactly. But those movies, there's a difference between kind of era appropriate offensiveness. Even if you're going back to the times of a birth of a nation, there were a lot of other films that would include blackface. They would have overt, racism and sexism in them. But they're not fundamentally about their ideology the way that Birth of a Nation is. And I think that's what separates Lady Ballers from just another stupid kind of bad comedy, is that it eventually does become explicitly about the fact that, or what it perceives to be a fact, that trans people don't exist and we have to save society from the rubes who think that they do. So
Well,
even if the form of this is slightly more palatable than What Is a Woman, like it eventually makes its agenda plain that is just as mean-spirited and probably opportunistic as What Is a Woman.
Well, the thing that was most shocking to me about Lady Ballers was, I mean, obviously the movie's going to be hateful. It's basically an excuse for transphobic humor, but I didn't expect it to be as hateful as it is. This is about as hateful as Funny Games, or I hateful for like it's like for the act of film or the act of whatever it's trying to be, something like Funny Games or the movies of Abel Ferrara. It's just like, not to say they're as good as those movies, but it's just like it hates all of its characters. Even I would say the Jeremy Boring character to an extent. He's like a lazy schlub. It hates the concept of women's sports that they are pretending to be women for. It despises the very act of like other like sort of transphobic movies. Like drag is, or like being in drag is a joke, right? But here, being in drag is like a provocation against nature. Like it's not just like, oh, haha, look at that, dude's got a penis or whatever. Here it's just like an active, or a lady's got a penis, I guess. But like here, it's just a provocation against the laws of nature. This movie is like it's astonishingly hateful to everything it sort of casts in its shadow in a way I was not expecting.
And it creates this caricature of the world, like even more so. That it's like this cartoon where it is like basically like oh, we should be so lucky if like things like transgender and like was so like I don't know, accepted in this way as like an overarching thing. It's like fascinating that these guys like they're like living in this like the post-apocalypse as far as they're concerned. It's like it seems like all right-wing anything is gone. There's like no representation of it at all. There's like essentially 6 right-wingers that exist in this world that they're living in, and everyone else, including his own daughter, is like talking about all these things he doesn't understand. It doesn't make any sense, and is like reinforcing the whole martyrdom that the majority feels about these things. It's just wild.
Well, yeah, in this
Yeah.
world, there's no powerful Republican politicians, no Fox News, no aggrieved parents groups who, in real life, when there is a vanishingly small example of a trans athlete, they absolutely fan outrage and pile on them and make their lives miserable. And
Right, no, their lives get better by posing as trans women instead of having any sort of kickback, any sort of
Yeah,
idea that like
They
now
get
that they're
glossy
posing as
Vogue photo
trans women,
shoots.
there's no death threats, there's no protests at the basketball games.
yeah,
Yeah,
which
it's
raises
just-
an interesting question that can something even be a satire if it's satirizing something that doesn't exist anywhere in the world? It almost defies the definition that like they're commenting on something that doesn't even come close to existing in any society in the world. Like it's another one of those bizarro moments where you're seeing this perspective of something they believe that's outlandish, but it's so separated from reality. I can't even consider it satire necessarily.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I was tossed up about, because at certain points it almost feels like airplane level silly, where like the journalists on TV are rapidly getting more and more like the one is like saying that he's a Native American, and by the end he's like in full headdress and everything, which is awful. Like
yeah.
part of which almost like reaches levels of like an interesting satire of there's almost interesting satires of the left for starters here and there, which I do think is like we need that. That's good. Like there are certain points where I see like media just sort of pandering obviously in like sort of awful ways, fucking T-Mobile at a pride event, whatever, like let's lampoon that, absolutely. But is a lot of that sort of it existing in political satire world kind of goes out the window when it just becomes so much like, especially by the end, it feels very apparent that this is the real world. Like I'm supposed to feel like this is a real world or something.
Well, I mean, to underscore that point, I saw in an interview with I think it was just a clip from Ben Shapiro's podcast, but this was conceived of originally as an idea for a documentary along the lines of What is a Woman? And he didn't go into the details, but presumably the stunt would have been them trying to do this for real. And of course, they learned very quickly that there's actually this thing that they're going to critique doesn't exist and is impossible in the United States. There's
Right.
no sports league at any level they're going to be able to send these guys to in wigs and have them like go make a mockery of the whole thing. And of course, they'd get their asses kicked in real life at the level they're trying to compete at, and so they have to make it into this completely like confusing, implausible satire question mark thing, because they can't, because none of this just doesn't exist.
Because the entire
They-
premise of the satire is impossible.
Right.
Exactly.
Man, that
Even a
sounds like an
single
idea Harmony
individual
Korine
couldn't
would have.
do that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that's most interesting to me. Just kind of like creating a comedy out of nothing almost. But yeah, I mean, the thing that's interesting about this movie though is it never understands whether its main point of critique is trans people or women's sports. Like, like obviously, they dress up as women and they become, like the biggest stars in America or whatever, and everyone loves them and tells them, I see you, I feel you, etc. But then, there's also these moments where like, they have, the children go into the game and they just get utterly destroyed because, women can never play basketball, or, just like, every woman in the game just being like utterly demolished and having no chance of ever being in sports or,
Which,
you know,
yeah, these guys aren't
yeah.
actually like star athletes. That's like what's really reinforced to us. Like at the beginning of the movie, they're just like Joe Schmo. Like I play basketball at the park, and they're all
and,
just like
you know,
able to defeat these like all-star
At every sport.
women athletes.
yeah, it's like
At
like
every
having
sport.
Adam Sandler beat Caitlin Clark. Like, you know,
Well, it's kind of burying the lead to just look at this movie as transphobic propaganda, because there was a certain point in the movie where I realized, oh, this like hates women way more.
Yes.
It doesn't think
That's
trans
what's hidden
people
in
even
here.
exist. But women, their sports are a total joke. Everything we allow them to do is just a charity case. Even the most
Yes.
hapless slob could beat a woman in tennis, the fucking hardest sport in the world.
Williams.
And it counts. I mean, the female journalist character it has in here, you know, there's lots of jokes about all the abortions that she gets. She gives this strange speech against divorce and full of statistics about how it harms children, which is a weirdly genuine moment that the film agrees with. But it is so condescending towards women above all else, to the point where like the big tender, earnest moment in this is where he somehow achieves redemption with his ex-wife when she happens upon him giving this lecture to their daughter about gender roles and how women are only there to civilize men and for the role that they play in men's lives.
yes,
And it's
they have
treated
no
as
inner
this
lives of their own.
heartwarming moment.
Yeah, it's
Right,
one of the
yeah,
most condescending moments in the whole movie.
Condescending to everyone involved. That's the thing
Yeah.
about that you realize the more you think about this mindset is it's condescending towards men, even like that they are basically their argument for what a woman is that, well, women do what men can't, which is be caring and like have
Cook.
empathy for others and cook and all these
Open pickle
things that are
jars.
just excuses. You know, you realize it's all this shell of excuses so that I don't have to be a fully formed fucking person. Like,
And they use it as the whole premise as an excuse to show men beating the shit out of women for comedy over and over
Yes.
and over again.
It
Yes,
almost becomes sort of like Jackass in that sense.
Yeah, well, clearly they're hiding behind the
They're
point
getting
that
their
they're
yucks.
making, but they're reveling in being able to show all this stuff.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean your bitch ex-wife who sends your kid to public school to be indoctrinated, and you know wrings these alimony payments out of you every month, like that's sort of the villain out of the gate before this guy discovers the race that the oh yeah, of course, and then you know your ex-wife's liberal boyfriend played by Matt Walsh in this. One
Terrible,
of the most
by the way.
annoying roles in the whole movie.
It's
but-
He's
an
as funny in this
incredible
as he is
performance.
funny in the previous film.
It's an incredible performance. I mean, like, he definitely commits to it, which is kind of shocking, but he also does it with this constant smugness. I mean, my favorite part of the movie is when you're introduced to him and he has like a copy of the, you know, like in this house we believe sign, and it's just the most insane. Like, it's like in this house we believe, you know, like the WEF controls the world, like bugs are beautiful, white people kill people, like guns. My favorite is guns don't kill people, white people kill people.
White people kill people. Yeah.
Also,
Which is
guns
actually
kill
pretty
people.
good.
There's a universe where that particular line is a little funny.
Exactly. There
The
are
one-
certain points in a different context, like they kind of, you know, like the left deserves some kicks. Absolutely.
I would like to challenge everyone. Is there anything in this film that you found even theoretically funny? Any kind of
Like,
little moment
funny
that
as a
worked?
sort of like
like a
like
I
as
mean, an
an
actual
MST
joke.
like as an MST3K kind of sense, or just like
no, an
laughing at it.
actual
Yeah.
like you know, a little throwaway line that has nothing to do with the agenda or something. Does it ever actually work as a comedy for even a moment?
I mean, I thought it was insane, but like I thought, you know, like one of the most heartwarming, quote unquote, heartwarming scenes in the movie is when they switch out the lady ballers for the children, or like the friends of his daughter, and you know they play this game, and you know like the other team is helping them or whatever, and then they have that like fake news report where it's like, you know, interest, like blah 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 blah, like, you know, like finals happened and an interesting thing happened. they were replaced with the young girls, and they brutally lost 1,000,000,000 to 0 or whatever. I thought that gave a little chuckle out of me.
Yeah,
But
that was
even-
one for me too,
Yeah.
where they present it like a heartwarming story of them all coming together and learning a lesson, and then they throw in at the end. Unfortunately, they were still trounced 100 to 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a little sort of, maybe not Norm Macdonald sort of line, but like Zaz.
Yes,
But then
that's
I have
clearly
to
what
be
it wants to
reminded
be.
that the whole like little girls coming out at the end is this totally demeaning like sexist thing that's going on, where it's like,
Yes,
we are supposed to see women's sports as like, oh, cute. Can you believe the little girls are playing sports and we
and
should
empowering,
respect
and
them.
the empowerment becomes the joke.
Yes.
Like it's, oh, they lost, so who cares?
But I can see here and there like some, again, like more so in a vacuum, that's like some of the performances are kind of good. Some of the comedic timing is kind of on. It like I have to give it that here and there. I do think like the one guy, which this is like on the long list of things in this movie that I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing that is anything. Like one of the main characters, who's like the first lady baller, basically, he has a job at a bar where he dresses like a woman with like huge tits, and like all the waiters and waitresses do this, I guess.
I've never heard of something
Yeah,
like
like, do they
that
think
in my
that
life.
there's
even
a
know
real
what they
place?
are like lampooning
Referencing
at this
to.
point.
Yeah.
Like
The
what
dollhouse.
I
Like,
think
it's
I
like-
could stretch my mind to say that like maybe they're doing this totally like crazy thing where they're like,
Femboy
I can't even
Hooters, I
get
guess.
I can't even get a waiter position unless I am transgender or something. I couldn't figure that out. Like,
Yeah.
another thing on that list like was this. So there's the two characters that like are just best friends, and they just do everything together, including like sharing a room and stuff. And I like there's definitely like hateful and anti-gay stuff going on in that, I think, where they're like like don't be too close to your good friends, and all that. And at one point, like it's like like an early 2000s kind of like raunchy thing where they have sex with the same woman or something. And but then it's like, and then the woman that they have sex with comes back at the end and it's like, I have a child, and it's like, who's the dad? And it's like, it's both of you. And it's like both funny, but also like feels like it's like a PSA for monogamy or something, or like
Yeah.
not
It's not even
being
for safe sex. It's just monogamy.
sexually promiscuous. Like you might not have access to your heir because you have to share it with another man. And it's like is there a viewer who's like, oh my god, like that is terrifying, I have to
That really,
make sure
all of those jokes felt just like they could have been from any like kind of direct to video comedy from that era. Like they don't feel like born of this ideology at all. The movie doesn't really like. I mean, all
until
of the
they
trans
push
jokes
them,
certainly.
though.
It's
Yeah.
like you can picture someone who like got super into like white chicks, like really laughing at the joke that they beat into the ground of like the guy anytime he walks up to like two of the dudes in drag going, how much? Like,
Oh, that's
right,
such a Happy Madison coded like
Mhm.
running
Oh,
joke that would be in one
ridiculous.
of those films. But yeah, every time that you start to just kind of treat it like a stupid, crass comedy, it'll do
They get in the
something
way.
like the most mean spirited scene in this entire movie, which is saying a lot, is towards the end with that character you brought up, Seth, the first lady baller.
I know what
who-
you're saying.
Yes, who tries coming out to the coach earnestly as a woman, as trans, even though they don't use that word in this movie, I don't think ever.
Yeah, after the whole plot has gone through, unlike the others, he has actually figured out that like, oh, this is for me, which in a way tracks like from the get-go. He's dressing up as a woman like before they're even doing this.
And it seems so genuine. Like it's actually is presented like a sweet moment where the actor
like
is
if your
convincing.
son came to you, dads out there, it might look like this, and it's like it's totally PSA.
Yeah, and in any other movie, this would be the moment where the coach suddenly starts to learn something or offers him some sort of empathy or acceptance. And of course, it turns that in his face, where he basically berates him and talks him out of being trans, and ends with him kicking him in the crotch as a way of proving that he is a man. And
Yes.
the way it's set up,
So hateful.
and the way it's treated like a punchline, is so depressing. And by the way, that particular actor looks fucking amazing in drag. Like,
Yes,
he makes a
I love him.
spectacular woman. I hope he has a better career from here on out.
We'll see. That scene is boggling. That was just like, there is nothing like this in another movie, and I'm happy about that.
It's like purposefully tricking you into thinking that it finally has grown a heart, which you can't really buy in the moment because of what's come before. It would shatter the premise of the entire film, but like, it comes so close to it. It's really jarring.
No, it goes with the whole thesis that men, you need to grow a pair, and and if somebody comes up to you saying they're this way, you gotta teach them, and you gotta hurt their feelings and not be afraid to hurt their feelings, because that's what being a man is.
And that's what we've learned. So I would like to get any final thoughts on Lady Ballers and maybe the project here as a whole. This
how'd you guys
flirts
like it?
with being at best a shitty comedy, and then at worst a hate crime. So I think that kind of equals it out with What Is a Woman, even though this goes down. This isn't necessarily as taxing of an experience from start to finish. It's interesting to see the kind of different textures of hate that they can use to express all of these horrible things. So I definitely would unwatch this one as well, but there is something a little more fascinating in the form that it's taking than the other one.
I think it's interesting. Like, this one is a richer text than What Is a Woman for me, because of, I think, like, the utter hatefulness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because its general sort of cynicism, not just like its hatefulness towards trans people, which is obvious in the text. But honestly, I found What Is a Woman a more interesting, first of all, I'm kind of shocked to say it was an easier watch. Like, Lady Ballers, first of all, Lady
things
Ballers
are very relative here, but yeah.
Lady Ballers
I know what you're
is 2 hours long. Like,
long.
Is it real? Oh
like,
my God.
Yeah,
I forgot.
it's 2 hours long. It took me 3 days to watch. This makes Satan Tango look like a Zaz movie. And this, the long stretches of just no jokes and the poor filmmaking. I mean, the filmmaking here is just not. If it was filmed worse, it would be more interesting to watch. Like, if Footmen Tired, What Will Horses Do is very badly filmed, but it's got like interesting use of angles, and it's like the poorness of it becomes an interesting text. Same with the movies of Ed Wood or Phil Tucker, etc. But like the movie, it just looks like a Disney Channel movie. Like, it's so boringly filmed, it loses that sort of interest. And with What Is a Woman, at least it has that sort of Michael Moore exploitation aspect of it. I don't know, with Lady Ballers, it was just like, you spent $10 million on this. So I guess it becomes interesting in how it's a mad world for a conservative media. I mean, every notable conservative has an appearance in this movie.
Oh, Ted Cruz. We got to mention
Cruz.
Yep, for literally 2 seconds.
2 seconds. Candace Owens.
Ted Cruz, who's so hapless, they can't even give him a joke to deliver. He just kind of walks by.
Bad. He's just like, hey, can I sit here? And they're like, no. And he's like, oh.
Okay.
We locked him up for that long.
Seth Dillon of the Babylon Bee, Clay Travis, who's kind of
Lord.
what if Stephen A. Smith was like evil? They got what else they got? They got obviously Michael Knowles, Brett Cooper, Ben Shapiro as a referee, Matt Walsh playing like Captain Woke or whatever.
Jordan Peterson, of course.
Also,
Jordan Peterson, yes.
We didn't talk about that extremely stupid final scene, like final moment with Matt Walsh taking off the wig and
taking off the wig.
What the hell was that supposed to be about?
Honestly, I have no idea.
his job is to sort of bring couples together, I guess. That kind of seems to be what they're implying by dressing up as like, I don't know, like a 2013 SJW. Like,
Yeah, no.
he's
Every time
he's
he
the
was
love
on
guru.
screen,
Yeah, the love guru. That's
I'm
exactly
missing
what
out on some kind of inside joke.
But if the love guru
Daily
was
Wire
somehow
had.
even more like hateful.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just maybe it's the fact of it being a richer text that made it seem less one note. And again, this is all just in like a morbid interest kind of way. This definitely does teach us something inadvertently about like the strong link between transphobia and misogyny, which was not something I was expecting to be so blatant at this point too. But
it's a good reminder.
Yeah, but what about you, Seth? Where do you come down on the divide between which one of these did you love more?
Which one was more watchable?
Oh yeah, so I have to use the word love. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely what these movies are promoting. Love. Love
is love.
Definitely easily unwatch this one, but I'm there too with this is like watching a movie from Mars kind of. It is just such a fascinating, weird document that it's beyond like car crash, you can't look away. It is like, I don't know, in some ways educational that you are getting the interior. And again, like maybe these things, but you're getting good reminders of how these people's minds work about this stuff and how sad a lot of it is. That's the main thing about so much of it is just like how sad and angry it all seems. And like beyond just any political ideological thing is just like not wanting to be that kind of fucking person who just like has no empathy, like because empathy is only for women, like or whatever it is, and friendship is only for women, it's just like reminds me of like why I've tried to get to where I am, like get away from like a lot of the things that I was kind of brought up around, like with masculinity and things like that. It's a good reminder in that way.
It really does feel lonely, like, and not because they're oppressed, but because they're isolating themselves from everybody else.
Don't touch me. Don't stand too close to me.
Yes, it's exactly. It's sort of toxic masculinity. But the other thing that's kind of interesting about it is how much it looks down on the act of male friendship.
Right, which is like Judd Apatow and all of that this is kind of like sort of secondhand aping is, if anything, celebrating that and like finding ways of making it like applicable to adult life, which this is the opposite. I don't know what these guys do together other than play basketball.
They're very tweet about how much they hate trans people.
Yeah.
They're very concerned with the limits
and
in their own friendships.
We do support dead naming that app on this podcast. We call it Twitter on here.
Yes.
Ding, ding.
That was the everything app.
Right. Oh, it's the everything app. All right. That was where my interest in joining this episode came from. I mean, our regular listeners know I'm not like on the mic very often these days, but if you have allowed your brain to be rotted by politics to the degree that I have, and if you live on Twitter the way that I do, I mean, like we've been suffering these like fools like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh for years, and I was kind of interested when you pitched this episode idea to kind of like give them their chance to, now that they've won, Donald Trump has become president twice now. Granted, they made these movies in the kind of in between phase, but like, what does winning look like to them? And it's kind of like the coach sums it up at the end of this movie. The line something like, winners are just losers who do the right thing. It's like they cannot
winners
see
are
themselves.
losers who win.
Yeah, they cannot see themselves though as
Which
anything
is an
but losers.
Cynical like thing to say. I mean, that was that's the tagline of the movie. That was, that's like on the poster and everything. And it's a shocking, usually conservative movies, right? Because conservatism at its core is about preserving the status quo, about preserving what was. And usually when you do that, it's about how good the past was, right? Or how good things used to be. But like here, and usually, but like here, like winners are just losers who win. It's an extremely cynical and mean, just idea at the concept of competition, even not even just like women's competition, but competition in general.
Like you're
well, and it
insulting their own
reveals that
ideology.
these people's identities are based on being aggrieved. I mean, they can't accept that they came out on top. They have to invent these these perceived injustices around like why is he having to dress in drag to get a job at any restaurant, like
From the
every
most marginalized
invented
group in minority group in like the world.
Yes.
Is their oppressor.
So I
There's-
mean,
Yes.
No
Ben
bottom.
Shapiro at one point had like the first or second most popular podcast in the world, and like they
Yes.
can't just they can't accept.
To be
that.
fair, though, the Daily Wire has lost over the past few months because they are going through massive legal issues, financial issues. I think they had to fire like 50% of their staff.
Well,
Sorry,
and of course,
75%.
I mean, all the big personalities are also, now there's all this infighting over Israel and Gaza, and there's this kind of just meltdown happening across the whole ecosystem. But for a brief period there, they really were on top, and then all they could do with it when they had access to this much money and access to this many eyeballs was to just make a movie where they imagined themselves as the losers again, because that's all they know how to be.
And also just make a comedy that doesn't like their highest aspiration here is to make a sort of 2000s direct to video comedy. Like, I'm sorry, if you have the money that I would do like, I don't know, like Heaven's Gate or something like that. Just like a massive epic of transphobia or what have you. But here,
Yeah.
it's just like, what is like what like this, like the sky is the limit, and what's your limit? I don't know, Dodgeball 2.
Well, do you know about
their
do you guys know
ambition
about
is as small as their worldview?
Yes, it's an
Well said.
extremely like these are all failed screenwriters, failed actors, what have you. And you would think usually if you have access to money now, like they would try to like look at someone like Ed Wood, right? Like Ed Wood was always sort of on the outs. He was never a winner. I want to say it, but he constantly he tried different sort of genres and different ideas and concepts or stuff like that. But here it's just like, we have the money now and we're just gonna make something that's disposable. And it doesn't even seem like, yeah.
I would say they're doing the exact thing that I think like maybe both sides of the political sphere in like Hollywood you can accuse them of, which is like being just like forgetting to make a movie on your way. Like you just can't, you get so tripped up on the ideology and the politicizing of everything.
Yes.
Like which is
This is a constant thing about
like,
conservative comedy.
like left-wing media
They can never keep it focused.
like, oh God, Moonlight, they're shoving it down my face or something. Like here it's like that's exactly what happens. Like they totally are like whatever aspirations they had in making a comedy kind of get disintegrated because they get in their own way by it just being so obsessed with their talking points. So yeah, it just like in closing, I was just gonna ask, since you have a lot of experience, Sammy, with these kinds of horror movies, is there like, especially since now we're living again in Trump world, I like sometimes worry about like what is the future with like conservative media? Do you have any like pinpoint? Like, am I like sometimes I worry like it's gonna get worse and like explode, like even in Hollywood or something.
Yeah, well, I think there's an interesting sort of there's an interesting dialectic here, because and first thing, like the conservative media boom of the early 2020s is dying off. Like the Daily Wire is going through massive financial issues. A lot of these podcasts are either wrapping up or they're going into legal issues, such as Tim Pool, etc. Like Twitch is kind of stealing a lot of their thunder, especially people like Sami Gold, who are kind of becoming like commentators in their own right. Like there, in that sort of world, like there has been a big decrease since I want to say 2024. However, on the other hand, mainstream Hollywood is seeing a lot more friendliness to movement conservatism that we haven't really seen since the Bush, or even really since like American Sniper.
I've seen like a lot of
like,
religious films on the horizon.
For example, like there's Angel, like Sound of Freedom was the 10th highest grossing movie in America in 2023. It's the highest grossing independent movie, I think, of the decade. I could be wrong about that, but it's one of them. Like it was just a massive moneymaker, and studios are looking at that, are being like, hey, we can make some money here. And the company that made it, Angel Studios, they had a movie, like a Jesus Christ, like the greatest story ever told, an animated movie that stars Sir Ben Kingsley, Oscar Isaac, Mark Hamill, famous Democrat Mark Hamill. Like,
is that the one where it's like Charles Dickens and Jesus somehow?
It's like Charles Dickens, right?
I saw that in the a trailer for that in the theaters. I was like, what the hell?
These are movies that are like, usually you would have to like be kind of a faded star to, go into one of these movies, like a Kevin Sorbo or a Randy Quaid, or like Treat Williams, even, who was always like a lib. But no, now you're seeing like mainstream stars wanting to get on this hill because it's very profitable. That's like the big thing we're seeing, like mainstream Hollywood becoming a lot more sympathetic to sort of Trumpist evangelical conservatism and evangelical Christianity in a way. I mean, like Disney, for example, just like wiped out of Lilo and Stitch any sort of LGBTQ characters. They're wiping out any sort of mentions to LGBTQ characters. Like Rachel Zegler on the press tour for Snow White, I think she said something against Trump, and she was forced by Disney to sort of like shut up about it or to apologize. And it was just like I don't even think it was that like controversial. It was just like, I think Trump is bad,
right?
Like, or like, this is wrong. She was told by Disney, shut up.
It is scary because when, the conservatives are kind of out of political power for the moment, then, kind of their refuge is playing that underdog role, whether it's in Fox News or in movies like this. And when they're in power, it seems like these kind of movies, like they still need to be made to make money, and they just get nastier and nastier because they're trying to find new targets.
Well, the thing that's interesting,
it's a scary place to be.
Yeah. Is that like ever since like the dawn of the modern American conservative movement, if you want to put a date on it, we can say 1954 with the first release of National Review. And ever since then, there's been like I've written about this, like it's been a mainstay of conservative discourse to say we are the underdogs. The left is so domineering, so powerful. You have to even think about stopping this. Like in the Cold War, for example, they thought the left was like the communists were in power. Like the John Birch Society opposed the Vietnam War because they thought it was a ploy by the communists to destroy America. Like it's constancy, this sort of feeling of being underdogs, and it's not even something that like they do to make themselves feel better. It's like it's a genuine belief. It's a genuine temperament that I think a lot of people, like for obvious reasons, can't take seriously because it seems so ridiculous. Like, how can you believe that when you look who's president right now, who won the popular vote? But like even now, like it was like a tweet I want to say a day ago when the whole Musk-Trump bromance started to break up. That was like, by the way, remember the left still controls America. Like, and this was by like a conservative influencer. Like there's a sense that, like Curtis Yarvin talks about this or JD Vance talks about this. And I think the big thing you're seeing now is conservative media as an insular ecosystem is sort of dying out. They're either being bought out or just kind of the vastness of the internet turns it all into a giant soup. But mainstream culture is becoming a lot more, if not sympathetic, than willing to entertain conservative perspectives without judgment or even with sympathy. Like, it seems like on trans issues, especially, like a lot of society has just fully folded without even caring or an afterthought.
Right,
And I think that's the big thing we're seeing right now. I mean, look, like you can look on Twitter right now. There's almost no companies that have their pictures, with rainbow flags. We can say that was condescending when it was done like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was totally a cynical ploy. But the fact that they thought they had to do it shows a sense of cultural, like you're going to do it because it's profitable, and if it's profitable to be friendly to gay people, that's a good thing, right?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
And you're seeing a retraction from that, which I think is the scariest thing, which is that conservative culture is joining the mainstream.
And that is the perfect note on which to wish everyone a happy Pride Month. Please go out and celebrate and hug and support your LGBTQ plus friends.
Go to a pride parade, be gay, do crime.
Just have a much better time than watching these movies.
Yeah. Don't be
Sammy,
is there anything that you old fuck like these guys?
Exactly. So
Sammy,
Sammy,
be 21 years old and watching this bio like I am.
So Sammy, do you want to point anybody towards your Substack or any projects that you have coming up?
Sure. Yeah. I just released my first article on Substack in a year. My Substack is, you can just look at under my name, Sami Gold, SamiGold. I go under the name Shmulek's Takes. My Twitter is constantly being put on people's timelines, so I'm sure you'll entertain it somehow during your time on that app. But yeah, you can check that out. You can also check out my writing on liberal currents. I'm in the midst of writing an article I hope to send to them that can get published soon. And you can check me out on such podcasts as Hit Factory and Junk Filter with Jesse Hawken. And yeah.
And now Unwatchables. The best one of all. All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you. You were definitely the right person to help lead us through this very tricky terrain.
Fog.
And
I'm happy I had people like you to suffer through this bile with.
We'll get through it like we do everything together.
Solidarity.
All right. Well, everybody, love each other. Go in peace.
That's
beautiful. And Ben Shapiro,
Open
if you're
your
listening to
friends'
this,
pickle
like I know
jars.
you are, come on the podcast and I don't know what would be a good one to have.
I
Ben
would
Shapiro on
love
for.
to ask you about the making of this movie. I would love to just hear the oral history.
Oh man, I just get Jordan Peterson on and talk about some John Wayne movies. You get all watery-eyed. I'd have to cry every time he pulls his little pistol out. They don't want you to see that.
Unwatchables is produced by Tony Scarpitti, hosted by me, Marc Dottavio, and Seth Troyer, with artwork by Micah Kraus. You can find Seth and I on Letterboxd under Marc Dottavio and Sloth Troyer. You can also check us out at unwatchableспod.com for links to our Twitter and Instagram, or support us on Patreon for bonus content and to have a say in what we watch. Thanks for listening.